A very good day to all present here. Welcome to Raaonline. I am Dr. Neela Bhattacharya. I am a plastic surgeon based in Siliguri. And today we will be discussing a topic that is a bread and butter for all plastic surgeons. And that is a procedure called skin grafting. Now, before we go on to what is skin grafting, this is the roadmap that we will follow for the presentation. We'll start off with knowing the basics of skin anatomy, and then we will do the definitions. What is a skin graft? Two things in a plastic surgeon does is a graft and a flap. So what is the difference between the two? Then we will go to classification of skin grafts. What are the types of grafts? And what are the different characters of each graft? When will we do a skin graft? The indications. We have done a graft. How does a graft take? The process of a graft accepting a new area is called a take. So what are the mechanics of a take? How does the graft heal? What are all the donor sites that we use? And what are all the tools that modern plastic surgery has for harvesting skin grafts? So this is the way I'm going to split my presentation and explain the topic to you. First, we start off with anatomy of the skin. That has to be known before we go into the process of taking a graft. The skin has two main layers. As you can see, it is the epidermis, which is the top layer, and then a big dermal portion of the skin. The epidermis is about 1/5 or 1/3 of the entire thickness of the skin. Now, what are all the structures in the epidermis? What are all the structures in the dermis? We will just see a little more. Now you can get a general idea of all what structures are present in the skin. And the skin rests on a hypodermis or a subcutaneous tissue which is made essentially of fat, which is called panniculus adiposus. And then comes the fascia and the muscle. So this is the general anatomy of the skin. Now we come to the epidermis, that is the area which is the smallest portion of the skin and which is present in the top layer. What are the structures present in the epidermis? There is a main membrane. Above that you have columnar cells which are called stratum basale. Now these cells keep on multiplying and they keep on going up and up. And from the top layer, the skin keeps shedding every day. Okay. From the bottom to the top, it takes about 2 to 4 weeks to shed. Why does the skin have to shed? Because the skin and the digestive tract are two areas in the body where it is exposed to outside environment and there is a constant damage. So our skin has the propensity to keep on regenerating itself. So from the columnar epithelial down, then it slowly starts becoming cuboidal. There is a layer called stratum spinosum where the skin is essentially held together. The skin cells are held together with some things called the desmosomes. Later on, as they go higher, the cells lose the nuclei. It becomes more and more squamous. Ultimately, in the top layer, there is completely a dead cell which has lost its nucleus, which has lost all the cell organelles, and which is replaced by something called keratin. And this keratin keeps shedding. So what we should know about the epidermis? That it has no blood supply of its own. It depends on the blood supply which comes from the dermis. The plasma diffuses into the epidermis and that is what keeps it alive. It is a stratified squamous epithelium and it is held in place by a basement membrane. So what is the importance for us in skin grafting? If we take a skin graft that is too thin and has only the epidermis, then the graft will not take because it is not a structure which is alive at the top and it has no way of regenerating itself because it has no capillaries and no blood supply. So that is the epidermis. The lower layer of the skin is called the dermis. Now, this has two layers. An upper layer where there are a lot of papillae, and this is called the papillary dermis, and a lower layer which has a lot of dense collagen and elastin fibers, and that is called the reticular dermis. Now, the dermis contains collagen. It has all a big capillary network. It is intensely vascular. It has nerve fibers which are even raw and are very sensitive to pain. There are hair follicles. There are sebaceous and sweat glands. Now, the dermis is very important for the take of a graft and for the donor area of the graft to heal also. So whenever we take a skin graft, we take the epidermis along with part of the dermis, and that is what is called a skin graft. The skin bud is in different areas of the body that we know. In certain areas of the body, it is very thin. For example, in the eyelids, a full skin is only 0.5 millimeter thick. Whereas if it is in the palms and the soles, the skin is very thick, even up to 4 millimeters. So there is a variation in the skin thickness. There is variation in the color that also we recognize. In the face, in the palms, the skin color is lighter. In certain areas of the body, example in the back, in the buttocks, etc., the skin color is darker. So there are various shades of color of our skin. What is a glabrous skin? A glabrous skin is devoid of dermal elements. That is, it does not have sebaceous glands, sweat glands, does not have hair follicles. So sometimes we need to graft areas where there is glabrous skin. So that time we should know. And then the hair density. In certain areas, for example, in the face, we don't want a lot of hair, whereas in certain areas of the body, there is hair density is very high. So when we take a graft, we should know where we are going to place the graft and what is the hair density at that site and choose a donor site appropriately. So these are the variations in the skin which we will have to keep in mind when we do a skin grafting. Why is it that any area we want it to be covered by skin and not by some other tissue? Because the skin has a crucial role in maintaining the homeostasis within the body. It protects the underlying tissue from injury and exposure. The papillary dermis, which has a lot of papillae, has a system whereby if it is very hot, it opens up to allow the temperature to go out. And if it is cold, then it shrinks further and keeps the body warm. The keratin on top of the skin in the stratum corneum prevents excessive loss of water and thereby keeps our homeostasis correct. It is a sensory organ. Because of that, it's an important sensory organ. The skin is the largest organ of the body, about 20 square feet. And that 20 square feet is exposed to the atmosphere, and it keeps telling the brain about what is the condition outside, whether it is warm, whether it is cold, whether there is any threat. And obviously, it maintains the identity of a person. Suppose we don't have skin, then I don't think we can recognize one person from the other. It is basically the skin which gives us the shape, which gives us the characters, by which we say that this person is Neela, this person is somebody else, etc. So these are the important functions of the skin. Now we have learned about the anatomy. Now we will go to what is a skin graft. A skin graft is a tissue with the full amount of epidermis. 100% of epidermis is taken with varying amounts of the dermis. Without the dermis, a graft cannot survive, which is detached from its own blood supply. A skin is completely taken out of its area where it is staying, and it is placed in another area where it has to take a new blood supply. So that is a skin graft, a tissue of epidermis with varying amounts of dermis that is detached from its own blood supply and placed in another area of a new blood supply.